Well, the question many people are asking this morning, is Mayor Eric Adams really in potential legal trouble?
So the New York Times is reporting that federal officials are examining if the mayor had a role in pressing the city to sign off on the opening of a high-rise built by the Turkish government. He was Brooklyn Borough president at that time. He had just won the Democratic primary for mayor. Here to explain what might happen next in these investigations and how the process moves forward, former federal prosecutor David Katz. Nice to have you back on Good Day New York. So let me ask you something. Is this unusual?
Well, this is unusual. You would expect this more for a common thug, that they would just, surprise the person on the street. This is a mayor. You expect good faith from a mayor. You have context between the mayor's security detail and the FBI. You would think this all could have been done off camera and where it wouldn't have been a cause célèbre.
Well, okay, that's interesting that you bring that up, because according to the Times, which has had the leaks, the feds had given the mayor a heads up that his electronics were going to be confiscated, and yet, according to the Times, they pulled him over after a public appearance, asked his security detail to get out of the car, and then they took his phones. That seems highly unusual for a man of the mayor's stature.
Well, it really is highly unusual, and it's one of the reasons that we know so much about it. That on top of the fact that, as you mentioned, the Times has read the warrants. Normally warrants are sealed, and if you get a search warrant, it's the person who gets searched. But knowing the text, knowing what the story is that the federal agents have told to the magistrate judge or federal judge who signed, that's something that usually for later in the game. And so there's been a lot of speculation from what the Times has reported is actually in the warrant. And of course, a lot of that goes back to the aide, the 25-year-old aide, because her place in Brooklyn was raided just about a week ago, and of course that brought the mayor back while he had meetings set up in Washington with high officials about the migrant situation. That brought him right back here, he said, because he was so worried that this top aide of his, who's 25, was traumatized. So it's been a very odd investigation in the last week or two.
And part of the question here, the allegation, is the influence. Did the mayor influence any decision to open this particular building, lean on the FDNY? Can you talk to us, just digging into what these allegations and what these accusations potentially could be?
Well, they could be a fraud, that there are straw donors. So if you're going to get, let's say, $100,000 from the Turks or from a Turkish company, well, that's fine. You disclose that in your forms that you got $100,000. If you don't want to make that disclosure because you think it might be politically embarrassing, or maybe the person giving you the money doesn't want to disclose, you could also have 100 people who work for the Turkish government or the Turkish embassy give you that same $100,000, all supposedly in their own name. And
that's what the straw donors are. So it's a group of people, whether or not they're sort of coordinated in an effort there,
It's
right?
definitely coordinated by the person who wants to give the money, generally speaking, and it'll be, let's say, somebody who works there. You have 50 people who work there, and suddenly the husband and wife of those 50 people all give $1,000. There's $100,000 that way, and then their names are on the disclosure forms. Yeah. There's also a quirk that makes New York City pay a lot more matching funds, because they pay
that's the key. They get more money from matching funds.
And the whole point is to keep money out of politics by raising that number so that there's not as much influence. The mayor put out a statement. They said, as borough president, part of my routine was to notify government agencies of issues on behalf of constituents and constituencies. I have not been accused of wrongdoing, and I will continue to cooperate with investigators. Now, some of this is dating back to his time, or all of this is dating back to his time as Brooklyn Borough president before he was the mayor. Of course, he had won the primary. At what point does that sort of transfer from routine government business to potential criminal activity?
Well, he could have committed this activity while he was still borough president or while he was mayor. They're all a violation of federal criminal law if they can sustain the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. And of course, everyone is entitled to their presumption of innocence, including the mayor. But if they can prove that kind of charge, it's a kind of a fraud. Sometimes they're treated as misdemeanors. Sometimes they are considered, well, those things happen in politics, but it is a way to have clean government. And on top of that, if it sounds to people technical, when people give you $100,000, they don't want to disclose that that happened. You're always worried that there's a quid pro quo. They also don't want you to find out that they did something. But whether he did something in the particular case of getting that fire permit issued, that's the one that seems like fairly routine politics, because he made a phone call, and we have no indication that it wasn't ready to be opened, that it didn't have proper fire protection. So I think we have to wait and see. But there may be other things with the real estate company out there in Brooklyn, and I think we're going to see what happens next, which will probably be grand jury subpoenas, people testifying in the grand jury, people are allowed to talk about what happened to them in the grand jurors. The grand jurors can't talk, but if you or I get a grand jury subpoena, we can go out and tell the media, hey, you know what they asked me? You know what happened over there? And then there'll be some attempt at negotiating the case. There always is. He's got very good lawyers, Mayor Adams does. They're from the public integrity section of the Southern District of New York, U.S. Attorney's Office, the same office that's investigating him. He's got terrific lawyers from there.
Interesting. Let me ask you, you're a former federal prosecutor. Does this seem like this case is moving quickly or not? Now, usually if the FBI is investigating it, usually is very thorough. It takes a very long time. But somebody said to me, because of the electronic takedown, that they think that this is near the end of the investigation. You would not do that unless you had everything and, you know, all your ducks in a row. Is that true?
Well, that's an excellent question, but it may also be that one thing quickly leads to another. In other words, when they went to her house, they did a thorough search. They may have found a week ago things that were quite incriminating. Let me just give you one example. He said, I think publicly, I didn't have any contact with her because I didn't want even the hint of an obstruction of justice. Well, if they found in the media things that they got from her, right, in her social media, if they found files in her house that showed that they had been in contact, let's say there were 20 phone calls right after it was announced that she had a search, that's something they want to look at the mayor's phone to say, well, wait a second. He says they had no contact those couple of days. And yet we have many phone calls, and we want to examine those phone calls, and they want to ask him. I don't think that the mayor will submit to questioning. I think his top lawyers there will advise him against that, and he'll probably reduce his public statements about it. I think that's also probably prudent when you're, when you're in the situation that the mayor finds himself in. But innocent till proven guilty. I think that's important to remember too.
David Katz, great to talk to you. How can people find you in case they're in trouble?
Well, I'm at Katz and Associates, K-A-T-Z, N like Nancy, ASSOC at AOL.com. You've got mail. Remember AOL.com?
Yeah, of course.
I've kept it all those years because of my clients, and people like to know it. If, God forbid, they need to make an email and they still have it, they don't have to think, oh my God. And David Katz is a very common name.
It sure is. I have a friend named David Katz.
Everyone does in New York City and around the country. Katz and Associates.
Thank you.
AOL.com.
Nice to have you here. Thank you so much for
It's my
explaining
pleasure.
everything to us.